Visit by Duke and Duchess of Sussex. Where's by Tourism Ireland? I think they're the ones doing the visiting there.
Oh, yeah.
Morning.
Morning. There's John. Everybody ready? Listen, thanks very much, John. Thanks very much for coming here this morning. I'm going to ask our party spokesperson on Dublin, Deputy John Lahart, to outline the purpose of our motion in support of the Dublin Fire Brigade, the Dublin Fire Brigade ambulance and the combined EMS system, which has been under threat for the last number of years. Myself and my colleagues, particularly in Fianna Fáil Dublin, have a long-standing working relationship with the DFB, with their crews, and have been ardent supporters of them, and we believe our motion this evening will further reinforce that. So I'll hand you over to John and we'll take any questions after that.
Thanks, Darragh. As Darragh said, look, this isn't new. It's not the first time we've been on the plinth in relation to this. Both Darragh and Seán have raised this by way of private members' motion before, through topical issues, and also through parliamentary questions, a host of parliamentary questions, and correspondence between ourselves and the HSE, and fairly detailed correspondence. So we're just concerned that the government is, while it has agreed not to oppose the motion this evening, that it's been dragging its feet in relation to this. This is of serious concern to the 1,000 fire brigade members who operate in Dublin. And I suppose the key point is this: while the Minister and the government may say that there is no threat to Dublin Fire Brigade and ambulance service, or no threat to it being absorbed under the umbrella of the HSE, all the evidence seems to point to the contrary. The funding for Dublin Fire Brigade, and Dublin Fire Brigade operates under the auspices of Dublin City Council, but the funding is channelled through the HSE, so neither Dublin City Council or Dublin Fire Brigade have control of their own finances. The call centre, the HSE wishes to amalgamate the call centres for both Dublin Fire Brigade and the National Ambulance Service under one umbrella. And in terms of what Dublin Fire Brigade excels at, which is simultaneous dispatch, and simultaneous dispatch is the dispatching of an ambulance full of at least four paramedics, and in some cases an advanced paramedic, along with an ambulance. So in concrete terms, we'd say if there's an accident on the M50, if a call comes through the National Call Centre and an ambulance is dispatched without a fire brigade, an ambulance has two paramedics on board. Evidence suggests nowadays that in order to deal successfully with a cardiac arrest, 4 paramedics are needed, and sometimes 5. And there are always 4 paramedics, and sometimes one of those paramedics is an advanced paramedic in a Dublin Fire Brigade and ambulance. So the solution to this, is parity of esteem. We have 2 ambulance services in the country. The National Ambulance Service was set up as a result of the amalgamation of the 7 health boards, operates predominantly outside Dublin. The Dublin Fire Brigade operates and covers 95% of the metropolitan area. So parity of esteem, return of the funding stream to the Department of Local Government, so that it can be filtered to Dublin City Council, to the Dublin Fire Brigade, and they can control and exercise an awful lot more control over what they do on a day-to-day basis.
Just to add very briefly to what John has said, the system here, the combined emergency medical service, works really well in Dublin. Many other cities across Europe have actually replicating and are replicating what the Dublin Fire Brigade and the Dublin Fire Brigade Ambulance Service do here. Why would you unpick that? Why would you look to undermine a service that's working for Dubliners, that provides over 80,000 calls a year? Their turnaround times, their response times are exceptional, and we've one of the best recovery rates from cardiac arrest in Dublin because of the work of the Dublin Fire Brigade. So we're glad that the government aren't going to oppose the motion, but we want to see action. We've been raising this issue, both our colleagues in the Seán and in the Dáil, for a number of years now, and we've the full support of all of the crews of the DFB. So we'll take any questions that people have now.
You might be very happy with the standard of medical care that's administered by the DFB at the moment. What's to say that it wouldn't be better if there weren't some synergies to be got by rolling it into the National Ambulance Service?
Well, I think there are synergies. There's no question there are synergies, but it's the cack-handed way that this has been brought about. That because the Dublin City Council, Housing Planning and Local Government, and the HSE are all involved. The crews of the DFB have been trying to work very hard, and their union representatives, to get agreement on this. And that hasn't been forthcoming up to now. It can't just be a simple amalgamation or transfer over of powers. There are synergies, there is no doubt about that, and that's recognised by the National Ambulance Service and by the Dublin Fire Brigade. So we would expect that to happen. But I think the passing of a Dáil motion here shows that the Dáil supports the service, so fundamentally the service will not be under threat. How you improve it then, and how you improve the National Ambulance Service, is a matter for the Department of Health.
Just on that, I mean, I think at the end of the day, this is in the interest of the citizens of Dublin. That's our brief in this matter. And if it ain't broke, don't fix it. The Dublin Fire Brigade have been providing an excellent service since, for over 100 years, and there just doesn't seem to be the goodwill to allow the coordination between the two statutory agencies. But that's the point I want to make, that it's not broke, so therefore there's no need to fix it. And a little bit of goodwill on all sides and the support of the government, this issue can be resolved.
I think as well there was an expert panel set up to kind of examine the two services being operated by the National Ambulance Service, who we commend also, and the DFB. And agreement was reached, by the HSE and the DFB on pretty well 90% of those recommendations. Critically, I think what's interesting is the Taoiseach, when he was Minister for Health, would take our position that Dublin Fire Brigade properly, from a legislative point of view, well, in legislation it is already under Dublin City Council, that its funding stream should come from the Department of the Environment. Now, he's on record as having said that when he was Taoiseach. So there's one point that we're getting particularly impatient about this. Seán is right. This is a patient-centred, person-centred service, and that ought to be the focus. DFB have no issue with the National Ambulance Service. It's one thing for the government to say they're not going to oppose it. Darragh and Seán have been fighting this case for a number of years. It's time that it was put to bed. So not opposing it is one thing. Actually making a decision, particularly in relation to the funding stream. The funding stream, if it were to transfer over from the Department of Health for Dublin Fire Brigade to the Department of the Environment, where it actually properly belongs, would bring a huge resolution to this. There's also a technical solution in relation to the call centre issue, which we'll be going into more detail with on the debate tonight. So there's actually, there's goodwill, but the HSE and the Department of Health and the Minister for Health needs to display real knowledge of the detail here. We've got a response from them saying, look, there should be no concerns about this, there are no plans. But essentially by stealth, bringing the functions of Dublin Fire Brigade under the auspices of the Department of Health and the HSE is essentially what's been happening for the last 3 or 4 years, and we're saying we want that to stop.
And I just want to add also that we will be bringing a similar motion in the Seanad. I think it's very important to show the support of both houses of the Oireachtas for this service, the people that work in this service, and the people of Dublin.
All right, good questions. Okay.
Darragh, can I ask about the ESRI report? Two things stand out. I suppose one is on the housing side. It's going to be harder to get houses and mortgages. They're factoring in the lack of new builds.
Yeah.
And then also they're saying that there's very little scope for tax cuts in the budget, but presumably people expect tax cuts if the economy is going well.
Well, look, we're going to have discussions as a party under the Confidence in Supply and putting forward our priorities. Don't forget that 2 years ago it was Fianna Fáil that actually dragged the government away from massive tax cuts, from abolishing the USC to investing in public services. Our priority, and we've said it, my party leader has said it, I've said it, and all of my colleagues, we want this to be a housing budget. We want to be able to show hope to people that you will be able to buy a home. We want to show hope to people who are homeless and the kids who are in emergency accommodation, that there is a future for them as well. So I think our priority should really be focusing on housing, the issues that we've had in health, and focusing on services. But those discussions haven't happened. Our finance team of Michael McGrath and Barry Cowan will be meeting with government counterparts. But we've already said very clearly, the areas where our priorities will fall under. The housing situation is nothing short of disgraceful in Ireland right now, and it is getting worse. And for every re-announcement that the Minister makes and repackaging of different schemes, we saw in the affordable loan scheme, the Rebuilding Ireland scheme, 5 people have drawn down mortgages from that scheme. 5. And we've had over 48% of applications rejected. We don't have an affordable housing scheme, but Sinn Féin and Fine Gael combined together to vote down our motion to establish an affordable housing scheme. So we have lots of things we can do. What I would be calling on people is actually to work together between now and the budget to actually show to be able to drive some progress in the housing area and indeed in the health area.
Do you accept though that people do expect some element of tax cuts or tax reform?
No, I don't quite yet, Kevin, to be honest with you, because I think there's really what people want to see is improvement in housing, improvement in health and in public services. There are quality of life issues. We're talking about special needs assistance for kids with special needs. All of these things from an education, housing, health perspective. I'm not sure whether people want a €10 cut per month in their taxes, or would they like to see their kids or their brothers and sisters being able to be housed or buy homes, and to stop the fact that we've nearly 4,000 kids in emergency accommodation. It's about priorities, and I think it's our job in Fianna Fáil, but it's government's job as well to be able to drive that message. There does always seem to be a view in Fine Gael of a US style tax system where just cut everything to the bottom and let everything else happen. We're actually concerned about how not just the economy but how society moves on in Ireland, and that's why we want to see investment in public services, but those discussions haven't happened yet and will be happening very shortly.
Thanks everybody.
Right.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you.
The other one was on the wrong day.